Welcome everybody to day 9 of talking about moral agency. In fact, today's kind of a difficult day for me in relationship to what we're going to talk about, because we're going to talk about the opposite of moral agency and talk about immoral agency, using our agency immorally, right? So let's consider for a moment the opposite of moral is that word immoral. And synonyms for the word immoral include being evil, dishonest, iniquitous, and dishonorable. And as we exercise our agency immorally, we to reject God, disregard His will and timing in our lives, and act unrighteously. That's what we ended with yesterday. We talked about acting in righteousness. Act in unrighteousness. We yield ourselves in mortality to the captivity and the power of the devil. So instead of getting liberty and eternal life, we get captivity and the power of the devil that usually dominates in our world. And we've all seen what happens to individuals when we choose to disregard God's will and timing in our lives and act in unrighteousness. So I would like to suggest that in the scriptures, the modifying word that I've been using this whole time, this word about moral, in connection with the principle of agency, perhaps is more of a divine directive, as Elder Bednar has said, and not merely an adjective. It really is a divine directive to use our agency in a moral way. And so a person is held captive by a fixed focus on self and sin. That kind of person never can be free. I hear it all the time. Well, it's my life. I can do what I want. Individuals who exercise agency to pursue only their own desires, their ambitions, their appetites, their passions, their pleasures, and live a life of convenience. And this is really kind of harsh to say, but it's reality. Live in prisons of their own making. And everybody's like, well, what do you mean by that? Well, it's difficult because the reality is that their bondage is really the most cruel thing, because they may never even recognize the constraints under which they live because of the choices that they've made. And so immoral agency, right? Instead of moral agency. This idea of being evil or dishonest or iniquitous or dishonorable, right? Where we exercise our agency immorally. We reject God, we disregard the will, we reject His timing, we act in unrighteousness, and then we yield ourselves to the captivity and the power of the devil, and it's not a great place to be. I think we all in ways have sometimes made those kind of choices, and we've experienced what it means to be captive and experience the power that comes from the adversary. And so it's really super important that we receive the divine directive of moral agency, because it leads to freedom and happiness. Okay, day 9 in the books. I hope that was helpful. And we'll talk more about agency tomorrow. You have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.